What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Slow Restoration. We have the Escalade back in the shop. Like I said, we're going to show you how to do a lot of the small maintenance kind of things, or the typical issues that this platform of GM trucks has. And today we're going to tackle valve cover gaskets. Very common for these to leak once they get miles on them. Like I said, this has well over 200,000 on it. Still runs good, but the valve covers are leaking. We did already do the oil pressure sensor. That's another area they leak. And either one of them kind of rains down over the whole motor and looks like everything's wet. So first things first, on the Escalades anyway, you have all these engine covers. We already have the top one and the driver's side taken off. We have the passenger side loose. Going to take our air duct off. There's a clamp there, unplug your mass airflow sensor. We'll lay that to the side. Here's our other engine covers. We'll get this pulled off, and the next step is going to be unplug our coil pack. So we'll unplug these. There's a safety pin here. We have that, and then it's just one plug in the center. So we have that off now. We'll pull that back to the side. Now we can unbolt our coil packs, and the only wires, except for the spark plug wires, we have to pull them off, but you don't have to unplug each individual coil pack. The one center plug goes to the wiring harness on the truck. The rest of them is a sub harness that plugs in the coils. So we can leave all those plugged in. Here's a bolt here. Should be one back here. It's just kind of staggered back and forth. I forget how many they are. Once I get them taken out, I'll tell you. I think it's 6. They all have these little studs sticking off of them. So we'll take all of them off. The coil packs, once we take these spark plug wires, and again, to get them off, the easiest way is to do a little twist and then just pull them right down. They pop right off then. You don't want to rip on them too hard. You could rip or pull the inside out. So a nice little twist and push down. They pop off pretty much every time. You can't get them mixed up because there's one coil per spark plug and it's straight down. So don't worry about getting them mixed up. We'll get the rest of these wires off, get the bolt zipped out, get this coil pack removed, and then it's just 4 bolts in the center of the valve cover to take it off. I did actually forget one step here. Your injector harness clips into the coil brackets. So you put your screwdriver under just like that. Give it a little twist. I'll try that again. Give it a little twist and it pops right off. Now we can pull that out and just push it up to the side. There's one there, and there should be one up front here. Nope, that one's already out. So usually there's 2, one in the back, one up front. So let's keep going there. These are 10 millimeter. We'll zip them out. Like I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It might just be 5. I'll double count when I get them all out, or double check, but I think it might be 5 now. And each one has, we'll get this one out and show you. Set that up there. We'll pull the bolt out. So each one has a little stud on the top of it. So we'll zip all of them out, and then the coil packs will literally just lift up right off of the valve cover. We'll slip them out, and then we'll get down to pulling the valve cover off. All right, we have all those bolts out. So now, literally, like I said, the coil packs just lift right up, twist them a little bit, and they'll pull right out. If you just have a Vortec motor and it's not a Cadillac Escalade or a Denali, chances are you can leave this top engine cover on. Again, this one had more covers on it because it is a Cadillac, so we did have to remove them, but no big deal. Now you can actually, let me get a light. There we go, we can see. Now we're down to the valve cover itself, and you can see how oily and nasty that is. So we're going to, there's 4 bolts in the center. You can see them right there. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the back. The only other thing we have to unplug is the PCV valve in the back there, the vent tube. We'll pop it off. 8 millimeter bolts in the center of the valve cover, and the valve cover will pull right off too. All right, we got our PCV valve unplugged back here. We got all of our bolts undone. Now, just like the coil pack, the valve cover just lifts up. Sometimes they don't come the whole way out. Make sure, pull up on each one of these, make sure it's undone. So we'll do a little twist, and it'll come right out. So we are fairly clean inside there. Doesn't look terrible at all. There's no sludge buildup. There's a little color, but you can definitely see that valve cover is leaking horribly. So we'll get this fixed up, get it put back on, and it'll be as good as new. All right, we got that side off. We might as well go ahead and pull this side off and do them both at the same time. As you can see, this side is also leaking. So it's pretty much the same. This side's a little bit more crowded because you have the AC stuff and the heater hoses in your way, but it looks worse than it is. It's really not bad. Again, unplug your coil pack right in the center. Undo these clips for your wiring harness, one here and one in the back. This side does have both of them still. Pull the 5 bolts with the studs sticking up for the coil mounting brackets. Get them out of the way. 4 center bolts. This one does have a vent tube which actually was unhooked. It's interesting. So we'll make sure we hook that back up. So it goes right there. Let me get my light. It goes right there, and it looks like it's been unhooked for a little bit. So we'll make sure we plug that back in. The vent tube and then the 4 center bolts. That valve cover will pull right out this way. All right, guys, we got that this side off too. I don't know what was different about this. I don't know if it's because it has rear AC and heat and those extra lines made a difference, or I'm not real sure. Maybe it's the type of coil it had on it, but I did have some problems getting that very last bolt out of the coil mounting bracket. And as you can see, the easy way was just take that coil off. It pulls right out, 2 bolts, 1 plug, pulls right out of the way, and then you can easily access that rear bolt. So I did quite a few of these valve covers, never had an issue before, but on this one I just couldn't get my socket in there. Maybe the Cadillac has a little more sound deadening on the firewall, I'm not sure, but we got it off now. So we'll pull those 4 bolts out of the valve cover, get this one off too, then we'll start cleaning everything up and prepping for re-gasketing these and putting them back on. Again, nice and easy. This side actually pulls out straight out of the front. You just lift up, slip it right out. So we have that off. Now we just need to clean everything. I usually like to take a rag and gently wipe up on the top rail here to keep that junk from falling down into the valve cover. And then we'll take a razor blade and just make sure we scrape the whole mounting surface. And then over here on the valve covers, you can see there's a little bit of sludge buildup in there, but really I think it has 227,000 miles on it, so it looks pretty good for that kind of miles. So these gaskets just pull right out, and we're going to throw them right in the trash. They're junk. Right in the trash. Now there is grommets in these. You just kind of push them through. Pry them back and forth a little bit. It takes a little bit of doing. I'm definitely going to need 2 hands here. Let me get one of them out and I'll show you how that works. All right, so if you pull these up and just wiggle them around a little bit, as I said, they come out. It's a rubber grommet that seals. And as you can see from this one, this was definitely leaking. You can buy these valve covers either way, with or without the grommets. Obviously, we need the grommets in this one. So we're going to replace all of those too. There's 8 of them, 4 per side. And we'll get this valve cover all cleaned up, wiped down, get our new gaskets installed, and we'll show you how it goes back together. All right, guys, hopefully you can see this good. I'll show you a little bit of a trick to get these grommets off. We'll push them down the center of that tube. We're not going to use these. As you can see, it's flaking apart anyway. They're a pain to get off this end, but since we're not using them, we'll take a razor blade and lightly cuts right through like butter, and then you can just grab that grommet and pull it right off. If not, you'll fight with it to get it off. But now we'll get these cleaned up, pop our new grommets back on, and we'll seal it. That'll seal up nicely for us. All right, we got our new valve cover gaskets with their grommets, and I'll show you real quick on how to put them on. It's pretty much all right, we have our new valve cover gaskets, and we did get the grommets, so we exchanged those. And we got our bolts cleaned up here, and I'll show you real fast. These grommets are much more pliable when you get them, when they're new, as you can see, and that's why they start leaking, because they get old and hard and don't seal very well. So let me set you down here and just show you real quick. This piece is loose on the bolt, so you just take that, put it over, and just kind of walk that around, and it just slips on. You can slide that up, and that's ready to go. I always leave these out of the valve cover. I slip the valve cover on, drop these in, start the threads, and as you tighten it up, it pops right in place. All right, so we're starting the install here, and obviously there's a kind of a pointy side with a flange that goes down into the valve cover, and the flatter of the two sides, it's kind of rounded with a ridge, goes towards the head. I always start with one of these, kind of work my way through there, and just work my way right around, just kind of popping that in there. Go right around the corner here, and it just kind of lays right in place. So as you can see, it appears it's a little short and it wants to pop out, but if you take and kind of run your finger down, it'll stretch that valve cover gasket slightly and it'll lay right in there. Just be careful you don't bump this too hard putting it in. I always install them dry. Some people put silicone on them. GM didn't, and they seemed fine when they were new, and the gasket was good. So I'll get this finished up and we'll get these valve covers installed back on. Obviously that's laid in there looking good all the way around, so we'll gently install this back on the head and get our bolts started. All right, we have it laid down on there, and if you look on the side here, you can actually see that valve cover gasket, and you can see it's in its proper groove. So if you need to, take a flashlight and a mirror around the edge, but I'm pretty confident I have this one. It's looking good. So now we're gonna we'll put our light back up here, and we're gonna take our bolts with our new grommets, and we'll get them started. You can kind of go down, find the thread. That's not it. There it is. So we'll get those started. I'll center everything up. Get a couple of those started. Probably not going to be able to see much here. Get this front one started. You might be able to see a little bit more there. You can just kind of feel around and feel when you get that in its proper spot. And then just start it. Like I said, it'll center itself right up in that valve cover. Once we have all of our bolts started there, we're going to go ahead and torque them down. And we'll start with, you can either one of the center, but we're going to work our way from the center out. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4 up front, or you can do 1, 2, 3, 4 in the back. It really doesn't matter at this point. Just work your way from the center out, and they get torqued to 106 inch-pounds. And obviously the same way on this side, we have the valve cover laid on. We got some of the bolts started. We're going to drop the bolts in there. We'll find that boss and start the threads by hand. Run them down, and then we'll torque this side up also. And of course, once they're all torqued down, we have our coil packs to put back on. We'll slip them in there. Line them up with the bolt holes. There we go. sure everything lines up. We'll get a couple of the bolts started. It's not lined up. Here we are. Once we get a couple of bolts, well, once we get them all started, we'll tighten them all down, and I'll catch up with you. It's pretty much all it's left to do is hook up our vent tubes. So one back there, the PCV valve, the vent tube that was not hooked up on this side, we'll make sure we hook that back up. And our coil sub-harness plugs. So there's one here, one main one on this side. And of course, on that side, we did have to remove that rear coil to access that bolt hole. You may or may not have to. I did, so we have to reinstall that. We have everything plugged back in, everything hooked back up, our vent tube in the back, our vent tube in the front. You can see our gasket still looks good there. Can't really see it on this side because everything's in the way, but we're looking good. Everything's wire-wise plugged back up. Spark plug wires, I did forget to say that. Make sure you plug your spark plug wires back up. Coil packs are plugged in. That back coil is reinstalled and plugged in. There you can see it. The only thing left to do is put the covers back on, but we're going to do some other little maintenance stuff here. So I think you can probably handle putting the covers back on. If you don't have an Escalade and or Denali, then it's just a small cover on top anyway, and you probably didn't have to take that off to do this job. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Have a good day, and we have some more maintenance stuff to do to this, so tune back in.